Hey, it's Scott Petrak with another episode of the Brown Zone Coverage Podcast. The Browns opened the preseason Friday night, and Shedeur Sanders was the star. He threw two touchdown passes and made a case for more repetitions. The Browns are in Philly this week for joint practices and a game, and Sanders will again get plenty of playing time as the quarterback competition continues to be sorted out and affected by injuries. Here to discuss, as always, is Dave Chudowsky of the WKYC Morning News. What's going on, Chud?
Let's go, Shedeur, Scott. Shedeur fever. Shedeur fever is rampant, running through Cleveland, Ohio right now.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, Chud. I mean, he's so popular. I think he's also polarizing to some degree, but everybody wants to talk about him. And I think there's a balance to be struck between how good he looked on Friday night, what that means for the quarterback competition, what it means for the future of him and the franchise and the quarterback position, and then the reaction of the fans and probably the reaction of maybe some media members too, and like the coaching staff in the NFL and league circles. How much does 47 snaps in a first preseason game really change things? I think it's a fascinating discussion.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. I want to really talk about that in depth. But before we do, let's get everyone caught up on where we're at. We're taping this on Wednesday morning. The Browns are in Philadelphia, Scott. Two practices, right? Wednesday and Thursday against the Eagles, and then off Friday, game on Saturday. Is that correct?
Yep, game Saturday afternoon, two joint practices. This is a big week for the Browns in the development and the evaluation. Kevin Stefanski doesn't want to put too much on this because he says that they evaluate everything and everything's important. But historically, he's talked about the importance of joint practices, and they matter because you see a different scheme defensively or offensively too. But let's talk from a Browns offensive standpoint. You see a different defensive scheme. So that gives you a new evaluation tool. You're going against new players that you don't see day in and day out. And Philadelphia is really good. They won the Super Bowl last year, right? So this is
Yeah.
a great evaluation tool. He'll continue to do what he's always done, and that's give the veterans and the starters the vast majority of the reps during the joint practices. And then on Saturday during the game, it'll be a lot of rookies and young guys. That spreads out the reps. It means you don't have to go, for instance, Joe Batoni doesn't have to play the Eagles D line twice during the week, and then he doesn't need to go get more reps on Saturday. That doesn't make any sense. So this is the ways Kevin Stefanski divides it, which is why you're going to see a ton of Shedeur Sanders again on Saturday.
So Stefanski spoke with the media Wednesday morning, kind of bring everyone up to date on where we are in this quarterback battle. Where are we health
Right.
wise? Who's going to start on Saturday? How are we looking with their reps in practice? What's the update on that?
Yeah, the health is such a factor in this, Chud, that it's really affected how Stefanski's been able to hold this competition and who he's been able to give reps to. And it started on July 26th when Kenny Pickett hurt his hamstring. Since then, Kenny Pickett's been limited and he's back into 7-on-7 drills, but won't do team drills again in Philly. So I can't imagine he's going to play Saturday. So, now we're talking is that 3 weeks where he's not a full participant in this competition, which is why it looks more and more like Joe Flacco is going to be the starter week one against Cincinnati, although Kevin Stefanski will not go there yet. I thought it was interesting on Monday. He said after this week in Philly, he'll decide when he's going to decide who the quarterback's going to be, right? So it felt like he was going to make that decision coming out of Philly, but I think the injury to Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel has got a hamstring too. That's really, I think, pushed back an ultimate decision on who your week one starter is going to be. So Kenny Pickett won't do team drills. Dylan Gabriel will do more team drills. It's interesting. He had his hamstring started to hurt a week ago Saturday, and he was limited, but still did some team drills. So it's obviously not to the severity of Pickett's hamstring injury, but he still didn't get the number of reps that he normally would have. He wasn't able to play against Carolina, which is why Shedeur played, nearly 3 quarters, and they had to sign Tyler Huntley just so they had a second quarterback that could play. So Gabriel's going to get more team drills in Philly in the joint practices. Joe Flacco will continue to get the bulk of the first team reps. The question is, will Gabriel come through these 2 practices in Philly healthy enough that the Browns feel they can play him Saturday? If he is healthy enough, and they don't know yet, and Kevin Stefanski won't say, and they want to see him practice and how the hamstring handles it, he would get to start in Philly. Stefanski said the plan all along was to start one of the rookies against Carolina and the other rookie against Philadelphia. So it probably got flipped. They probably would have started Gabriel in Carolina if he were healthy. But if he's healthy, he would start, and I would expect it to be a half. Gabriel the first half, Sanders the second half. If Gabriel's not able to go, then you probably see the same division of reps that you saw against Carolina.
So at this point, we do not know when the week 1 starter in the regular season. We don't know who that will be. We don't know when we'll know who that will be.
Correct. You can't wait forever. Could you wait until, could they wait until after the preseason finale, August 23rd, which is home against the Rams? I would expect the starters to play some in that game. I think Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett would want to get some preseason reps. I think Stefanski has shown that he likes to play the starters at least one preseason game. So, could it wait till then? Or could it be next week, whatever day of the week it is? Stefanski says, hey, we're going into the last preseason game. I want my starter to know he's a starter. Head into that game knowing. I could see it playing out either way, Chud.
Flacco will not play this Saturday against Philly?
Nope.
No. Okay. So could we have a situation Pickett, Flacco don't play? If Dillon's not ready, would it be same thing then? Shedeur and Huntley?
Yeah.
Same exact thing again?
Yep. That's what I'd expect for sure. And, the Pickett factor here is, do they feel like he has a real chance to win this job still? And they liked what he's done, in those first couple of practices of training camp. But like I said, he's been out a long time. But then in that 7-on-7 Monday in Berea, he was he only gets one 7-on-7 drill. That's all that's all they did. And then they went to team. So he sat out the team. But in the 7-on-7, he was 5 for 5 with 3 touchdowns. It's a red zone drill, but he looked really good. He made 3 really good throws for touchdowns. So, I think they would like to see more of Kenny Pickett before making a final decision. But it's always felt like Joe Flacco to me. And I think the organization just to say, okay, at some point, we're moving ahead with Flacco. But let's say Pickett might be able to play the 23rd against the Rams. To the Browns say, hey, let's see him in this game and hang on to that idea. I think that's the decision they're trying to make.
You kind of touched on it a little bit, but as far as Saturday goes, starter-wise, is Philadelphia going to play any of their starters?
No, I don't think so. I think it'll be all joint practices for their starters. So I think it'll be a bunch of young guys and backups.
Yeah, okay. All right. Where do you have the quarterback? We ask you this I ask you this every time. Where is your 1 through 4? And that does not include Huntley or Watson.
Right.
We're not allowing those 2 on the list. 1 through 4, where does Petrak have it right now?
You're asking my opinion?
Yeah. I want to see where you at. Yeah, exactly.
It's Flacco, Pickett, Sanders, Gabriel. I think the Browns probably still have Gabriel ahead of Sanders, and we're going to get into Sanders here in a second. That's where any change would be, in my estimation. And I think I don't want to rule out Kenny Pickett because I do think there is a sentiment inside the building. We talked about it. Chud, they traded for him. Felt like he was going to get the first chance to be the starter, but I don't think he was very good in the offseason. I thought he was okay at the start of training camp. They liked him. They liked his performance better than I did. And then we have the hamstring injury. So I feel like the gap between Flacco and Pickett has grown, but I'm not going to rule out Pickett. And then it's the 2 rookies. And I think Shedeur Sanders has outplayed Dillon Gabriel since the day they arrived. Now, that doesn't mean Gabriel's not better from an operation standpoint or, the Browns like his decision-making better. Things that maybe aren't as obvious, and the coaches look at the game film and go, well, or the practice film and say, he made every right decision, and the ball went where it had to go, and maybe Shedeur missed open guys. Some of those things, I think you probably need to rewatch the film. But from a throwing the ball aspect and a playmaking aspect, Shedeur Sanders has been better, and that just carried over to Carolina. And I think when you see it in the game against a different team, I get it's the preseason, but that matters. And to me, it should at least be a level playing field. And I wrote this earlier in the week. It should at least be a level playing field between Sanders and Gabriel as far as who's going to be the top rookie. And that top rookie is either going to be the number 3 to start the season or the number 2, depending on whether or not they keep 3 or 4 quarterbacks. So Gabriel has had the advantage in repetitions and in the rotation, and he's gotten work with the first team. And I understand it because he was the 3rd-round pick, and they felt he was more ready, and Shedeur Sanders had a bigger learning curve. But right now, I think that should go to a level playing field because I think Sanders has been that good. Gabriel has struggled. So I think any edge that Gabriel arrived with should have been erased by now.
Scott, I have to tell you, I have Sanders fever. I don't like to jump on board too fast. I understand it's a preseason game, and I am not going to anoint him the starter or say he is going to win a Super Bowl one day. I'm smarter than that. I get it. But I have eyes, and what I saw, I was very impressed. He's been very likable so far. His character's been good. I don't understand the negativity towards him in the past necessarily. I understand being Deion's son and all that, but just watching him play in that game, Scott, he looked like an NFL quarterback to me. He passed the eyeball test. I understand. Now, I know he struggled a little bit against the starters, and he got better as the game went on. But imagine, this is what I kept telling people the last few days. Imagine had he played like crap and looked bad the whole game. He just had poise, confidence, and he looked good to me. Now, will it last? I don't know. I can't predict that necessarily. But I will say that I'm jumping on board. I kind of already was on board, not to the degree a lot. Tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like a good percentage of fans and media are either on one end or the other, and there's not a lot of middle. I feel like I think you're kind of where I am at, but I feel like I'm gravitating closer to being on board with Shedeur Sanders. Like, yeah, he can be the guy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think we have to remember it's preseason against mostly backups. He did start. I mean, the Panthers starters began the game, but then they were out relatively quickly. We've seen other quarterbacks have success in the preseason, and it doesn't translate, right? So you have to keep that in mind, and I know you are.
Yeah.
But if you like Shedeur Sanders, here's what I think. If you like Shedeur Sanders at Colorado, and you liked him in the minicamp, in training camp, then what he did in Carolina just confirmed that for you. And that's where I am. We've talked about it a million times. I liked him coming out of Colorado. I thought he deserved to be let's call a late first round, second round pick. Even if he wasn't the number 2 pick in the draft, I thought he showed enough to be the second quarterback taken. And he wasn't, right? I don't know what he wound up being. I should know that. But, Tyler Shuck went and Jackson Dart went and obviously Dylan Gabriel and Jalen Miller, right? So he doesn't go to the 5th round, which was stunning. I thought he was way better than that in Colorado. Completes 74% of his passes, leads the FBS. I've liked how he's looked in training camp, and especially throwing the ball. He's extremely accurate. He throws it well down the field. We saw that against Carolina. The first touchdown, he layers it into Caden Davis. The second one, he slides a little bit in the pocket, gets to his 4th read, and rips one to Davis in the middle of the end zone. He gets out to his right and lost one up for Luke Floria. He stands in the pocket and throws a deep in cut to Gage Larvadan. So he just makes a bunch of good throws. And to me, that's really important as a quarterback, right? I don't know if it's number 1, but it's really high on that list. And then there's the other part of it, and it's the operation. Can he get you in and out of the huddle? Can he call a play in the huddle? All things he didn't do at Colorado. And that, to me, is where the biggest learning curve was and why the Browns were bringing him along so slowly. And it's not perfect, but it was pretty good in Carolina. The pre-snap penalties were minimal. The operation looked good. showed that he could read a defense, getting to his second and third and fourth progressions. And then the other concern is the sacks. He took 94 sacks in 2 years at Colorado, and now he ran away and backwards twice, which is not a good sign against Carolina. But neither of them led to a sack. Both led to incompletions. Neither of them was a sack. But you can't do that. Like, you can't keep turning your back to NFL defenses. Myles Garrett's going to bring you down. Whoever you're facing, right? Trey Hendrickson, whatever. They're going to get you. So you can't keep doing that. He needs to get over that. His footwork needs to be more consistent. But he also showed that he could get away from defenders. And he's not the best athlete in the world. And I wasn't sure he had the elusiveness in a game situation to get away, but he did twice. And he scrambled for 10 yards and scrambled for 9 yards. So those are all things that I liked. And if I think he has the potential to be a starter in this league. I'm not saying it's week one. I don't think it's week one. Is it week 9? Maybe. Is it next year? Who knows? But I do think he has really good potential. And that just, I think, continued to be obvious in Carolina.
Yeah, Scott, you make so many good points about Shedeur, and I want to be clear here too that I liked what I saw again with the eye test. Like, yeah. I just throw away the fact of whoever is on the other side, first team, second team, whatever. I feel like you have said, you made a great point. We've seen guys succeed in preseason and then it didn't translate, right? But I guess we've also seen it the other way around where, we've just seen guys that just didn't get it I just feel like he looks like a guy that gets it. I guess I'm just excited about what I saw with the eye test, and you make a lot of good points, and again, you're a Shedeur fan coming out, so I just think, I guess the bottom line is I don't think there's any reason for fans. I think we should be excited. I mean, it's a position that we have not had since Bernie Kosar, a couple minor hits here and there. But overall, it's the position that's cost us since they've returned to the league. And I think it's okay to be excited that he could be a potential solution.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that completely, Chud. And again, you're right. I don't want to get too far down the road, but I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think it's fair to have these thoughts and discussions. And the Browns need to find their long-term quarterback. That's what this is all about. I mean, you have, besides this year, right? You have, all right, who's going to be the quarterback this year? Can they win games? But long-term, they need to find that long-term answer. And you need it to be a young guy. And could it be Kenny Pickett, right? That's why they traded for a 27-year-old Kenny Pickett, hoping they could, get the next Sam Darnold or the next Baker Mayfield, right? The guy who was a first-round pick and didn't succeed, then he goes somewhere else. Even Geno Smith, who was a second-round pick. So they took a shot at him. Does it work? It's way too early to tell, but I would say probably not, because he's probably not even going to be the starter. Then you get Dylan Gabriel. Then you get Shedeur Sanders. You got 2 first-round picks next year. It's all about finding that guy. But if the guy's already in your building and he's a rookie and you think he can be the guy and you got him in the 5th round, like, maybe they fall into it. And that could be the best thing for this franchise. Now, again, that's forever down the road. But if somehow you came out of this year saying Shedeur Sanders is the guy, then, man, those 2 first-round picks get awful valuable. And if you can draft whatever, pick a position, wide receiver and defensive end or whatever you want to do, all of a sudden you flip that roster in a hurry if you have your quarterback. So, I think if fans wanted to start thinking about that and look down the road and can get excited, like, that's the end game of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'm not anti-Pickett. And to be honest with you, I don't have a problem giving Gabriel a shot. I don't think they should have drafted him in the 3rd round. I think most people agree with that. But, right. It's true. Now, do you like the way they're handling Sanders with, not getting the first team reps in practice? Do you think that's a big deal, or is it okay to move him along at the speed they feel that he should be moved along? I mean, it may never have been in their plans to even want him to be the guy right out of the gate in week 1. Maybe they feel like they have to move him along at a certain pace. Are you okay with how they've handled it?
Overall, yes. I completely understand it. I talked about how there's a big learning curve. They thought there's a big learning curve for Sanders, and I think they're right. And it was about the offense he ran at Colorado, the how many sacks he took, right? It felt like it was going to take a while for him to fully grasp, fully get integrated into Kevin Stefanski's complicated system, and then be able to succeed. So it was when the Browns drafted Shedeur Sanders, which they didn't expect to get him. They thought he'd go early, and then they take Gabriel, and then it became, oh my gosh, he's still here. Let's go trade up for him. It became a long-term project. So that's why they're bringing him along like they are. That's why he didn't get the first team reps. That's why he was a distant fourth on the depth chart. And I'm fine with that. But after watching him, and especially in that Carolina game, now I think it's okay to give him equal footing with Dillon Gabriel. And the Browns are not doing that. We're taping that Wednesday. I'm not in Philly, but I know what's going on in Philly. And Dillon Gabriel's getting a bunch of reps. Shedeur Sanders isn't. Gabriel's getting some work with the ones, which is consistent with how it's gone to this point. I just felt like this was a time for it to change. And the Browns obviously don't. They still have Dillon Gabriel above Shedeur Sanders on the depth chart. They're still giving him a chance to show. I don't think they're giving him a chance to show he can start week 1, but I think they're still giving him a chance to show that he can be the number 2, which would affect whether or not you keep Kenny Pickett or you try to trade Kenny Pickett. So they see a lot that they like in Dillon Gabriel. I have not seen those same things, but they're not going to move off of that just because of a tight hamstring or struggles early in training camp. They feel like Dillon Gabriel is going to be a good player for them. And I appreciate the conviction of their beliefs and not moving off of that. I just think Shedeur Sanders is a better player, and I would give him more opportunities now. I understand up until this point, but I would increase his reps and even give him a look with the first team just to make it even and fair with Dillon Gabriel.
Let's hit a couple other positions here. Wide receiver Gage and Davis. Do they have a shot to make this team?
Well, I think Caden Davis does. Chud, when I do my, I've done one kind of 53-man roster projection, and I'm pretty sure he was on it. And then, I kind of update those in my head, and I haven't done a second one yet. But he's on the team, and he's bounced around. I think he's 26. He's bounced around on practice squads. He's only appeared in one game. It was at the end of last season for the Browns. But he's got size. He's got better size than Leverdan and Luke Floria, who, the mentor kid that unfortunately hurt the hamstring and now is on injured reserve. Probably will get a settlement. Could wind up back on the practice squad. But those guys are like, I think Leverdan is like 5'8". And Davis is 6'1". So that's different. That's a big difference. He's fast. And you saw him catch the 2 touchdowns from Shedeur Sanders against the Panthers. But also during training camp, he's been getting a lot of time with the first team offense. They're giving the ball on end arounds. It just feels like they want him to be a part of this. And they're giving him every opportunity to show that he can be. And I think he took a big step in that game Friday night, catching those 2 touchdowns. So I think he's on the team. I think Leverdan is a practice squad guy, assuming he clears waivers. Undrafted rookie, small. Now, he keeps showing up, but he feels more practice squad than active roster to me.
Schlesinger looked pretty good in his limited time, didn't he?
Schlesinger, yeah. Judd, continuing a really strong offseason and strong training camp. They need him right away to be good and to play a lot. And he's given you no reason to doubt that. He's got some heft to him. And he moves really well, but he's got some size. He's got some power. And he showed up right away. He didn't play a bunch, and he showed up a lot.
How about Mason Graham?
Yeah. Same thing. I think he was only credited with 1 assisted tackle, but it was a good play where he's double teamed and was able to get off of blocks and get his hand in on a tackle. He had some pressure on Alex Wright's sack of Bryce Young. So it's still a process for him. We talked to, and I wrote a story posted this morning on Brown Zone about Mason Graham and his development. And he talked about reshaping his body. And Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, mentioned this a week ago that that was an issue for Graham. It's something that he needed to work on. He said he lost 10 pounds of fat and gained 3 pounds of muscle, and he's at 290-ish, which is a little light for D tackle, but they want a guy that can get up the field and penetrate. So, does he wind up getting to 250 or 295, 297, something like that? I think it's probably ideal for him, but faster. Jim Schwartz said he's faster, which is what they're looking for. He's still transitioning to the attack instead of read and react. And he said, in Michigan, when they asked him to take on double teams, when you get to double team, then you stop your feet, right? Because you want to hold the double team. Because here, they don't want you stopping your feet. So that's a fundamental technique thing that he's still working on. But they think the sky's the limit. And he has certainly shown up in camp. And then I thought he did on Friday night.
Scott, what are we doing, Myles Garrett, with the speeding ticket? What's going on? I mean, what? Not good.
It's not good. And Kevin Stefanski addressed that today in Philly and said, he addressed it with the media today in Philly and said he addressed it with Myles, he addressed it with the team. He needs to slow down for his safety and the safety of others. And, we talked about this with Shedeur Sanders when he had his back-to-back speeding tickets in June. And, Myles is a serial offender. Remember when he rolled the car in 2022? It was a one-car accident. He rolled it. He was injured. He had to miss a game. Luckily not severely injured, and he was able to come back and play, and he wasn't life-threatening, which could happen when you roll your car. He had a passenger with him. She suffered minor injuries. And he talked about learning his lesson, and he was going to slow down because he had 2 tickets before that going 100 miles an hour. So then Saturday night, I assume coming home from the airport, because the Browns played in Carolina Friday night, so they couldn't have gotten back to Cleveland much before 1 o'clock in the morning. He gets a ticket at 2:01 in Strongsville going 100 miles an hour. You got to learn your lesson. And maybe nobody's on the road at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he feels like, he's got his fast car and he's looking to get home. That doesn't make it okay. And all you need is a deer to run across the road or somebody else to come flying up, right? I mean, we all drive. We all know what can happen. And your reaction time is so much less going 100 miles an hour. So it's disappointing that Myles didn't learn from the accident and didn't learn from the previous tickets. And yeah, that's it. It's disappointing, and he needs to be better. And I'm sure the Browns are pulling their hair out because he's supposed to be a leader. He's supposed to set an example. Andrew Berry really criticized Shedeur Sanders, and rightfully so, for his speeding, and then Myles does it, 2 months later. So he needs to be better.
Yeah, no question. Did you see the video of Shedeur and Sanders talking on the sideline?
Yeah, Shedeur and Myles. Yeah, that was pretty fun. And that's
what did I say? Shedeur and Sanders.
Yeah. I did. So talking to himself.
Talking to himself.
And I think that's enough. And I don't know what this counts for, Chud, but you can tell guys gravitate to Shedeur. And David Njoku's talking to him, and Joe Flacco's talking to him. It looks like people genuinely enjoy talking to him, and his teammates genuinely enjoy it. And I think he's a likable guy. He's got a good personality. Obviously, he's famous and he's been in the spotlight, and I think there's something to be said for that and what that kind of cachet carries in a locker room. But he has that it factor and that swagger to him. But there was funny. He was like, he said, Myles, it was along the lines of, do you think when I was running around I could have gotten away from you? And Myles was like, no, you couldn't have, and I would have gotten you. And he's like, one time I would like to feel that. And Myles was like, no, you wouldn't. So, it was a pretty, I thought, funny exchange. And I think Myles is right. That whole turn your back, it doesn't work when Myles is flying coming to get you.
All right, Scott, that's all I got. We'll see what happens this weekend. Obviously, I think the practices, as you talked about, are more of the focus than the game, but certainly especially with the quarterbacks. We'll have our eyes on them on Saturday. And then, boy, we're inching closer to week 1.
Yeah, how about that, Chud? And yeah, so I'm thinking we'll see both rookies on Saturday, and it'll be good. It won't be an equal comparison because one will, go earlier and probably be with the 2s, and then the other guy will go with the 3s, or however that works out. But it'll be a good comparison on this field, same game, same opponent. We'll see how Dylan Gabriel handles it. I think it is a big week for him. I'm not down on him, but we talked about his struggles, and I think those are real. This is a chance coming back from the hamstring, getting a bunch of work in Philly during the week, getting some time on Saturday, I'm assuming. Does he kind of reestablish himself? Can he make a run at being the number 2 for week 1? Or does Shedeur Sanders pass him? I think both those things are possible, or at least in the discussion, depending on how this week goes. So, yeah, it's a big one. And then we'll reconvene next week, and then it's getting ready for that preseason finale, roster cuts. So we'll have plenty to talk about next week, Chud. So I appreciate it as always. I appreciate everybody listening. Subscribe and like and share whatever you're supposed to do on these podcast things. But this has been another episode of the Zone Coverage Podcast, and you can read all my work at brownzone.com. Thanks.